learners are being killed and thrown into pit latrines. Because there was another case in the Eastern Cape where a similar thing happened. Initial reports were that the child had fallen into a pit toilet. But the final report, which the media never gave attention to, indicated that there was foul play there. In fact, the matter went to court, it was ventilated there, and the final outcome of that case were different to what was reported initially. If you are also picking up the comments by the police, they are following certain leads on this particular one, because there is something wrong there. It's just that, as the minister indicated earlier, that we don't want to look like we don't want to take responsibility. But let's also agree to afford the police the space to conduct the investigation. Very soon, they will make an announcement in terms of what they are finding as part of that investigation. Minister, I apologize. I felt I should just try to clarify this one because it's taking us a different direction. Thank you, Minister.
No, thanks for that clarification. I think that's the point that we're trying to make, to say let's not preempt the outcomes. If it means we're negligent, whatever outcome is, we will not refuse to take responsibility. But I think Elijah has covered the point that we're making. And as I say, even as a minister, when this matter came, because there were lots of concerns that our silence is deafening, the child has been drowned, a very tragic death, we're not saying anything. And I said, from where we sit as government, we can't be, police are making investigations, we can't be making our own reports and investigations. We're appealing to people to await the outcomes before we conclude as to what is the final story. But I think, let me not repeat what Elijah has raised. I'm going to ask DG to really talk, because the one about learners without proper documentation, it's something that we have to verify unless DG has information ready here. But we can commit that immediately after this we'll speak with our state section to say from the 10 days count, because we normally have your 10 days count, so how many learners we have for 2023 as compared to 2022, and of those, if we've been able to extract to say how many of those learners don't have proper documentation. And I don't think it's a question we can answer upfront, but we can be able to provide an answer quite soon. There was a question also to say why in the Langalami the toilets were not removed. I think maybe we already have given lots of information. It's a different story. It was in the Lunga case where we say there were new toilets that had been built by the province, but unfortunately where Lunga was found was in the old toilets which had not been demolished. So why they were not demolished, I think it is where I think is a problem to say if you're no longer using these toilets, you are inviting thugs, criminals to get into the place, and that's where the mistake was, to say why were they not demolished. But the fact of the matter, the point I was trying to make is that she didn't drown because there was no proper sanitation. She was found, and that's why I said there's also a police report. She was found in old unused toilets which were far off from the school. Again, I really don't want to get into the space to say how she got there, but the police explaining how she got. She didn't drown using a pit latrine. She was found in those old toilets which had not been demolished. So what we have done subsequently is to request even schools to say, even in some schools where we put new blocks, the old blocks are not demolished. Sometimes rondavels that we replace are not demolished. So there's a whole program to say if there's new infrastructure, demolish all unused facilities, because they do attract problems for us, as they did with the Lunga case. So it's a different one with Langlam. Langlam was found not in old pit latrines. We were saying at the back of the latrine where I think waste goes to, and the lid was removed and she was found in that pit. And again, it's a matter of police investigation. Our appeal is let's allow the family to mourn, but also let's allow the police to do their work. On matric rewrite, I think DG, you also I'm not sure what is the latest, whether they have, was the matric rewrites for 2023 are happening, are going to happen in June. Right? The matric, that's the only opportunity. So I'm not sure, maybe it's the old ones, but there will not have been a matric rewrite after the December exams. The only matric rewrite is going to happen now in June. And then May, June, and the results we normally expect around September, August, September. So maybe the question was for the maybe 2021, which would have happened either in December and June, but DG can answer, I think, much better on that one. But I'm requesting that we be allowed to provide the answer on undocumented learners later, because I don't think, unless DG has these figures, but I don't think it's information that we have for 2023. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Mr. Mklanga decided to do a caucus as I was running up to respond. Yeah, the issue, Minister, it's about remark, not rewrite. Yeah, if learners are not happy with the outcomes of their results, they usually request for a remark. And the results become available as soon as the remark has been done. And the remark doesn't wait for the May-June. And those results should be available as soon as the remark has been done. It would be highly appreciated if we get details so that we follow up that case. I mean, the learner or the parent can link up with us, give us the details so that we follow up. We do follow up for parents who bring matters of this nature to our attention and to get them the results as quickly as possible. Minister, you are right. Learners without proper documentation wouldn't be able to give that information to the media now because it's not readily available. But what is important is that the court ruled, as you all know, that whether learners have got proper documentation or not, they must get access to education, to our institutions. And the assurance that we have received from all provinces is that there is compliance with that court decision. If there was no compliance, I think members of the public would have raised that, including some of the NGOs who have been working with us on that. So we could check from our system, Minister, how many of such learners do we have, and then make it available. There was an issue about overcrowding. Mr. van der Westhuizen, they crunch figures, you know. I think it's best placed to give that information. Sometimes these figures, Minister, they don't make sense to me, but they make sense to experts. As they extrapolate, postulate, and do different models of running the data. But his best place, he'll tell you how many classrooms require. But overcrowding is becoming scary, Minister. In many, many areas, urban areas, including rural areas, where teachers can hardly walk in the classroom. And the Council of Education Ministers has directed that in our meeting coming on the 3rd and 4th of April, we must come up with solutions. Our minister and the Minister of Finance, and we are very thankful to them, SAFE and ASIDI was supposed to end in 2022-2023, as Mr. van der Westhuizen indicated. It has now been extended by 3 years. And part of the reason why our minister and the Minister of Finance agreed to extend is to address chronic overcrowding. And overcrowding affects not only classroom, it also affects the system in terms of the number of teachers, including the number of support staff, learning support material, all kinds of provisioning that we make in the system. So we do have at least government investment in that direction, and we are finalizing our plans on the 29th and the 3rd and 4th of July to take to the Council of Education Ministers to come up with a solution for overcrowding. We are also looking at bringing in local solutions, and the concept that we are running with, it's SIPOs. With SIPOs, Mr. van der Westhuizen will give you a full acronym of that, or a full, name of the acronym, which is actually getting local contractors, local people, including schools themselves. This was able to run very well in Gauteng and Western Cape. We piloted that there, so it's going to be part of the solution that we are running there, where schools, together with local contractors and local communities, are able to build additional classrooms. I think the Minister addressed the issue of the responsibility in respect of the unfortunate incident of the learner who passed on, and I would also urge that we wait for the investigation to conclude before we preempt, and it's important that that happens. Eradication of pit latrines, we've given the number. We are only left with about 900 inappropriate and unsafe pit latrines in terms of the numbers that we have. Some of those, 700 of them, are going to the new financial year. In 2023-2024, we should say goodbye to the structures, as we indicated in the presentation that we shared. Why were the old structures not demolished? In the case of SAFE, we are saying part of what SAFE should do, as we build new structures and make new structures available, the old ones must be eradicated. We also monitor. We've come across instances where contractors did not demolish. In some cases, they did not properly demolish. We've sent them back at their own cost to go and do that. But there are instances where it's a provincial project, as the Minister indicated, and we are working with provinces that the same understanding must prevail. If new structures are replaced, then the old structures must be removed so that they shouldn't become a hazard. And Minister, we have also insisted, Mr. van der Westhuizen, in the specifications, particularly for sanitation, we must have lockable manholes. Lockable, so that the key is with the school principal only. In many of our schools, the manhole lid is a cement lid which can be lifted by one strong man or two strong men, and this is where these the things that Mr. Motshekga explained happen. But if we have a lockable manhole and the key is with the principal, nobody will do these things that Mr. Motshekga has shared with us, and then throw learners into the pit. So that's what we are looking at, even in terms of our specifications going forward. Thank you, Mr. Motshekga. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. I think all the difficult questions, the Minister and the DG has responded to those, so let me take the easy ones. Just on the comment on toilets, I think just the way the question was phrased, I want to really ask, just take cognizance of, are we talking about the basic pit toilet issue, or are you talking about pit issues? When we talk about sanitation, the first challenge that we faced is that we inherited schools that had no toilets. So we can go back into the details of those SRNs, 1996, 2000. If I had a bit of time, I can try to find those figures of what was the number of schools that at that point in time had just no toilets. So in 2011, 2012, Mr. Mafoko was involved in the initiation, and the Minister was involved in the initiation of the ACIDI program. So on the ACIDI program, we said, listen, in 2011, 2012, where are we in terms of schools with no toilets? And there were about 1,000 of those. We've reported on those 1,000 sorted, served with appropriate full set of toilets. So the no toilets sorted. The second level was those schools that do have toilets, but they still have inappropriate toilets. They still are dependent on basic pits. So that next level, that's the 3898 of SAFE. So the 3898 cleaned up a little bit of rationalization, whatever, 3,400. We've indicated that has been reduced 911. And all of that 911 is currently allocated to implementing agents scheduled for completion, some of them by Friday. So if you want to avoid the traffic jam, stay out of Eastern Cape, stay out of KZN, those constructions are going to be chaos up to Friday. Chasing them, the balance is scheduled for completion in 23-24. So that takes us to the end of no toilets, that takes us to the end of dependent on basic pits. If there are any other schools out there that are still dependent, if you have information like that, please share it with us. What we also need to just mention in terms of sanitation and infrastructure in total. We have many schools in this country that are older than 100 years. So now it's very critical of how that school was built at the time. It was built with proper face bricks, with proper cement joints. They are still lasting and they've been maintained. They will still last today. But if they were built by the communities, and did you mention about Plunky School and mud schools, locally manufactured bricks, some of those schools after 50 years or how long they've been there are starting to crumble. If you then have a nice thunderstorm and like the floods that we had in the Eastern Cape and KZN recently, it's making a severe impact on those schools. So you may have a good school today, tomorrow there's no roof, two walls collapse. So it's a bit of a moving target. So I think we've addressed the issue of the sanitation. The issue of why are toilets not eradicated. Like I say, many of these toilets were built by the communities. And what we find is some resistance sometimes. Because of the sentiment, it's my mother, it's my father, it's my grandmother who built those things. Or maybe I built those things. So it's a bit of sentiment, so we need to deal with that. So we are currently busy. A lot of the engagements that DG has with the provinces and even with the school principals is around this issue. I mean, we need to weigh up sentiment against safety. So our policy at the national department is we demolish and make safe all basic pit toilets. That's it. That's it. I think ENCA asked a question about overcrowding. In terms of the number crunching, if you simply take the list of 22,000 schools and for each school indicate the current learner numbers, and you then take a basic norm of 1 to 40. So number of learners divided by 40 learners per classroom give me an answer of how many classrooms do I need at the school. If I then compare that with how many classrooms do I have at the school, and there we've taken the two things that have got conventional construction classrooms and you have also mobile classrooms. So the question was, what is that answer and in which province? I think that's the question. The short answer, in all the provinces. And the number is a big number. That simple calculation of classrooms required tell me there's about 8,000 schools that have a problem with overcrowding or a shortage of classrooms. Now what the curriculum people tell me, I'm simplistic in my calculation because for Afrikaans second language I can 40 kids in the class. If it is violin, please don't put 40 kids in the class. So there are some other calculations. So my colleagues from school and curriculum management have engaged with the districts and asked the districts specifically, what are the challenges that you experience with overcrowding? So I'll give you the two figures. My mathematical engineering calculation is 8,000 schools, about 70,000 classrooms. 70,000 classrooms. Now a lot of that is also subject to the rationalization and the alignment issues. So if some of those schools that are currently theoretically in terms of a simple calculation overcrowded is maybe an unviable school, the whole school should be closed and those classrooms should be built on a different place. The curriculum and school planning people engaging with the districts came back with a figure of about 35,000 classrooms. So the real answer is somewhere there, somewhere between 30 and 70,000 classrooms. Now that's massive. Either way, it's massive. So how do we address that? We are currently working with the minister. I think the DG also do it. We have got like weekly engagements with the minister. And from an infrastructure point of view, all I can say is that we've got meetings on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday around school infrastructure with top management. This is the priority that we have in the province. Part of that discussion we believe, led to Treasury changing their mind. They categorically stated that schools back around is coming to an end. First, in this year, we had to convince them you can't just kill Assyrian saints like that, you need to wrap it up. So they gave us grace to the end of 23-24. They've now changed their mind, because I think they started to understand the magnitude of this challenge of overcrowding. If we talk about overcrowding, of where does it come from, whatever, we went back into the figures of the number of learners per year per province. Now all of that is available on the website. You can go to the IMAS and the school reality reports. It's all available to you. So we go in there and you start to see the increase in learner numbers from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. All the provinces had an increase, and part of the problem is urbanization, but I think we also see something else. There's a migration of learners which is beyond the urbanization statistics from Stats SA. And what we also expect is that there's a difference between the migration of learners at a primary school versus the migration of learners at a secondary school. It seems like parents are maybe happy to keep the smaller ones closer to home, but when you go to secondary school, we're going to get you to the good schools. So there's a lot of secondary learners that get sent to the major centers, and that is not only Gauteng and Western Cape. It is also the major centers like even Polokwane or East London, Kobega, or whatever. So in every province, the urban centers experience this overcrowding issue, and that is something that is getting analyzed more at the moment. In terms of how do we address it, there was a comment about SIPOS. Gauteng has got a severe challenge with overcrowding, the same with Western Cape. So what Gauteng have started to do is they started to work through the school governing bodies to say that if we can transfer some money to the school governing body, can you help us through your parent and your community, get some architects, get some builders, get this sorted out. And that approach worked quite well in Gauteng. So there's some good evidence of good progress made and good value for money on that. Western Cape followed a bit of a different approach. Western Cape appointed what they call framework contracts with bigger contractors and then allocated work through task orders. That also worked well. So we are currently working on a combination of those. So the term in the department at the moment, SIPOS, is the Special Intervention Program for Overcrowding in Schools, is starting to take shape. On the 29th, we've got a meeting with all the provincial heads of infrastructure and all the counterparts to find out exactly what is the status, where are we going, what is it that we can do to move forward. We are working towards a presentation to HEDCOM, which is the head of education departments. There's a workshop scheduled for the 3rd, and that must go into the HEDCOM for the 4th, and that must go into a recommendation to the CEM, the Council of Education Ministers, most probably by the end of April, beginning of May. So that's where we're heading, and we want to take a proposal to that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister DG and Mr. van der Westhuizen. I do not see any follow-up hands. Oh, okay. There's a new one and maybe some new questions. Vanessa?
We have 2 questions from Hoboka from the Sowetan. The Minister said 2,478 school projects were completed out of the 3,398 schools identified through the SAFE initiative. The outstanding schools that have not been completed, in which provinces are they located, and when will the department complete their infrastructure upgrades? The last question is, from the 2,478 projects completed, what kind of adequate infrastructure developments did the department put in? What infrastructure problems did these schools have? And what infrastructure developments were made? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Pruti Musuman from Inside Education. 2 questions. The first one, in terms of implementing agents and suppliers, who is monitoring the quality of materials supplied at the schools and the frequency of that kind of monitoring? The second question is, what is the lifespan of a mobile classrooms? There are a number of schools in Tembisa, I've noticed, that since 2011 for one primary school, they've had mobile classrooms. You can clearly, when you walk in, you can clearly see this is an old mobile classrooms. And a number of those schools there, some of them are doing very well. JP Matabang in Ivory Park, they only have mobile classrooms. What is the lifespan of those mobile classrooms?
All right, that's fine. Can you make that a final round? So at the end of these responses, we have to close, because I'm not seeing any hands. Minister, I'm not sure if you want to take the first bite, and then the technicians will come after you.
I thought we were going to invite Stefan Dervesen. So we are left with about 918, if I'm not mistaken, because we monitor weekly. And maybe Federation will say, where is this 918? But as we explained, that it will be mainly in Limpopo, Eastern Cape, and KZN. That's where the bulk is. But maybe they'll give a breakdown to say, where is this 918? In those three provinces. And what is our planned target? The target that I was given by officials, DG and his team, is that by the end of this financial year, 2024, 2024, we will have dealt with this remaining backlog. So that's the information I was given. In terms of mobile classrooms, what I know is that it also depends on how they are constructed and maintained. So if you put them, in some schools I find provinces putting them on planks or bricks, then the surface is weak, so because these are young kids, then it collapses. In some instances they would have put cement and put them there, then those last longer. And it depends also on the type. So I'm not, from what I've seen, I'm not able to say it's 5 years, it's 10 years, because it depends also on the quality. There's a school in Mamelodi, which we were given by ArcelorMittal. It's mobiles. I expect that school to last for 25 years, at minimum. The way it was constructed, it was properly done, top quality material that was used. So that school is going to last for me as long as your brick and mortar lasts. So it depends on the construction, but let the engineer come and answer technical and engineering questions.
I think the Minister provided a good answer. All the outstanding schools, the 911, are in Eastern Cape, KZN, and Limpopo. All other provinces sorted. Even on our city, where we're building the outstanding work on our city, DG mentioned the inappropriate structures, they're all in those provinces. In terms of the quality of the material, I think maybe the question is who monitors the quality of the construction and the whole product out there. I want to link that to the other question is what type of infrastructure did we provide? So if we just go back there on the 3 sub-programs, inappropriate structures, there are 2 types. In majority of the cases, we built fully fledged brand new brick and mortar schools. In some instances, specifically on the smaller schools, we have used alternative building technology or modular construction. So some of the schools that are currently still in construction with the DBSA, about 15 of those are currently, so those are based on modular construction, and we're using various patents, various service providers who tendered for that. In terms of water supply, there's also a mixed bag. If municipal water is available, that's first choice. Then we connect to the municipal connection and we reticulate the system. That's the easy one, and then you can have flush toilets and hand wash basins and whatever. If municipal water is not available, then we try to go for a groundwater solution. We try to find an appropriate site for groundwater development on the schoolyard. In many instances, this is not possible. Then you have to drill a borehole 500 meters or even a kilometer away. That becomes much more of a challenge, and then water quality also becomes an issue. In the extreme case, where there is no water supply from the municipality, there is no groundwater source that is viable, we are back to rainwater harvesting. So there we try to to harvest as much as we can and to have some sort of a treatment system to ensure that the water is suitable. In terms of sanitation, also a mixed bag. If the municipality is serving that particular schoolyard with a full sanitation service, we simply connect to that service, we have flush toilets, and we go. In many instances, unfortunately, that is not possible. So there's a combination of water availability, and there's a water service availability, and there's a combination of sanitation service being available. If that's not available, then you are stuck and you need to come up with a local solution. So the local solution can still be flushed. If there's sufficient water, we can still have a flush toilet that goes to a septic tank or a French drain. Or we are using some of these technologies that the DG mentioned, that we are working with the Water Research Commission. There are closed circuit schools where you have a flush toilet that flushes into a tank, and then there's a treatment, and the same grey water then gets recycled. We've got a school, I think in Krugersdorp, that's been running now, over 1,000 learners in the school, that's been running for more than a year now on a closed circuit. We've got a small Terrello farm school other side of Kulini, also closed circuit, been running for over a year now. So some of these are working well. So we're trying to use that. For the rest, if there is no sustainable water supply, there is no sewage system, we are back to dry sanitation. So dry sanitation, the default is then a ventilated improved filtry that as a minimum conforms to the SUNS 10400Q standards. And like I mentioned, we apply some additional standards on top of that. For instance, for those that want to go into the SUNS 10400, they have an open pit. We say unacceptable, it must be a sealed pit. So you need to seal the pit, contain all the sewage in the pit, and then treat it from there. So the construction of the sanitation again, in the majority of the cases, these toilets are built brick and mortar. You've seen many photographs there. Brick and mortar, proper construction, proper roofs, fascias. In some cases, and specifically for smaller schools, those schools that are on the brink of either rationalization or not, on some of those schools we apply alternative building technology, and there are a couple of suppliers in South Africa, and we are working on that. So we are applying that to the smaller schools, alternative technology. That's not the first choice. The comment about the mobile classrooms, it's the same as on these toilets. So alternative building technology, which is like a prefabricated kit that you install, same with the mobile classroom prefabricated kit. It is absolutely dependent, first of all, on the original design of this. It's secondly dependent on the installation of it, if it's properly installed, but then very importantly is the maintenance. As much as your car can last you 20 years, but if you don't maintain it, it will not last you 2 years. So just for the record, I grew up in Polokwane. I attended the school with temporary classrooms. Those temporary classrooms are still there. And that's more than 10 years ago.
Okay, what a way to end it. Thank you so much. Yeah, colleagues, thank you so much. We've come to the end of the briefing. We really appreciate the presentations have been distributed, available. We also upload on the website. Also, it remains there on the YouTube channel. You can go back anytime and listen to the presentations once again. Thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it.